Democrat half-ass policies make matters worse, and the only people criticizing this are bad faith actors from the right. People on the left would criticize the Democrats for not doing enough, rather than recognize how incompetent they are in what they are doing. Some listening to this, hearing me say that, would say that's not true. They would say that they have said how incompetent the Democrats are. Um, yes, I'm well aware of that. But in regards to housing, there are big issues that have never been discussed. I haven't seen anyone discuss it in left-wing media or right-wing media, because right-wing media are not giving a good faith critique of the Democrats. It's just this anti-liberal content for views and clicks, and basically negative ads on behalf of the GOP. So a lot of their critiques is garbage. Not completely garbage. They do make some valid points, because the point is not to say garbage. The point is to attack. So if there's some valid stuff, depending on other considerations in terms of from a business standpoint, they may or may not discuss them. But critiques from the left, again, are generally that the Democrats are not doing enough, right? So here's some more details about something I've discussed previously on this channel already regarding housing, specifically the imbalance between tenant protections and landlord protections. Now, ironically, before I was an owner, and for, I don't know, how long have I been renting? I've been renting since 1995. So let's call it over 20 years. I lived in, very blue areas, big cities, and had no clue how much power I had as a tenant, which is a big part of the problem. This is such a complete, excuse my language, clusterfuck. Like, it's so, the whole thing is just totally a disaster. So on one hand, you have excessive tenant protections, but then the tenants aren't aware of their protection. Because think about it, I'm the what do you call it, professional managerial class guy. Didn't go to college, but doing a high skilled, professional work, whatever. So I ain't no genius, but I'm not an idiot either. But yet, with all the awareness that I have of things, even I didn't realize how much power we have as tenants in these areas. So can you imagine many, many millions of people who are renters in the area that don't actually know their power? And why is that? Why don't tenants know how much power they have in these blue areas? Just to give an example, specific example, I dealt with a leaking roof for years at my apartment. Me and other tenants were complaining, and the whole time we felt very intimidated in terms of, not that anything was being done to us, but we just assumed, like, we don't have any power. This big landlord with all these buildings and stuff, he's got all this money, he's probably tied into the government and blah blah blah. Who knows, right? And this is like a legacy thing where the landlord, to my landlord, because it's still my landlord, he's the son, of the son, right? Who was the original guy that founded this like business, right? So they've been several generations in the area. So I'm just wondering what kind of connections they have in government and things like that. So just pure speculation. And I'm thinking, I don't want to make too much noise because then they try to retaliate. I really liked where I was living. I was afraid of being evicted. I thought it was easy to get evicted. I had no idea how difficult it was, right? So you look at someone, a typical person who's not, such a inquisitive person as myself. I'm always asking questions and trying to learn new things and reading about stuff. So I'm the nerd. Basically, is what I'm getting at. I'm the nerd. If the nerd doesn't know how much power tenants have, then who does, right? So that being said, that's one part of the problem, right? So you have these excessive amounts of rights, and then somehow the tenants aren't even fully aware of their power. And part of the reason why they aren't is because you have people like TYT that, their reporting is very skewed. The evil landlord rhetoric. Someone who can own a house, they would discuss someone like me as just some greedy capitalist just trying to squeeze the life out of the community. They don't describe me as a human. They don't describe me as a regular person. They talk about people like me as if I'm Bill Gates or something. I ain't got Bill Gates money. I got to work for a living. You know what I'm saying? But let TYT tell it. I'm just sitting here squeezing all the money, sitting back, cashing checks. They don't know nothing about some lady trying to book a stay today she wanted to be able to check in within a few hours of booking, um, even though check-in time is hours later. So she wanted early check-in. I thought it was going to cost more money because I got to do craziness, man. I mean, you're last minute booking something, and you come with a whole bunch of people. I'm supposed to run around and on a holiday weekend and try to find a laundromat that's open and spend my time in there washing clothes because I can't do drop off last minute like that, and to accommodate a big amount of people anytime, right? And then she super entitled, right? I was willing to I was up to the task, right? But it's not going to be easy, so I wanted to increase the price, and there's some tricks that I can do to save time. Like I was gonna, instead of washing, I was gonna buy extra sheets, and I mentioned that to her. And she's like, "Oh, you should have enough sheets, blah blah blah." Like as if I'm a hotel. I'm not a hotel, right? It's just me by myself. I don't have a team of people. A lot of times I do the cleaning myself just to save money, and it's a lot of work, man. I'm starting to get arthritis now. My fingers, my hands give me pain. It's not easy. Hustle, hustle, hustle. All day weekend, people are relaxing. What am I doing? Working on the gate downstairs. I've been working on the doors. The doors have been jamming. I got a tenant complaining about it. So late last night, I'm with my chisel. You know what I mean? Like I'm down on the ground. There's like wood shavings everywhere. It's not easy, man. Right? But let TYT tell it. I'm just sitting on my ass, trying to get money for nothing. Right? Never mind the tens of thousands of dollars that I put to buy this house in the first place. That took me years and years to save up. All the long nights at work and all the sacrifices, all the relationships that I didn't have, because I was too busy grinding and grinding and grinding. And then I take all that money I worked so hard for and then invest in a property. And then I'm still grinding with the property, but yet the perception is, oh, I'm Bill Gates. What? Really? If I was Bill Gates, I wouldn't be, messing with my hands and arthritis and mess up my back and all this kind of stuff. So anyway, so you have excessive tenant rights. Tenants have all the rights. The owners don't have any rights. It's like, as an owner, you're dirt in these blue areas. $30,000 in taxes that I have to pay, property taxes, and I can't even get a fake phone call from the mayor. Mayor says, "Oh, I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna call you. Yeah, we're gonna talk." I follow up, nothing. I wasn't expecting much from it, but the fact that he wasn't even willing to do a fake phone call, meaning calls me up, listens to me on my little soapbox, and then says, "Okay, I'm gonna look into this, and we're gonna help you out. We're gonna see what we can do," and then does nothing. Not even willing to do that. Not even willing. I mean, that's easy, man. That's easy. You tell me you're gonna call me, and then you don't do it, even though you don't have to actually promise anything or deliver anything. You just have to put on a show so you can sort of pretend like you care and like, well, I tried, and unfortunately the laws. You know what I mean? He's not even willing to do that BS. He just completely ghosts me, right? Mr. Love to have his photos on the newspaper and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? But again, another part of the problem. A lot of people on the left aren't aware of this. They would assume someone like me that has money to buy a house like this, pay those kind of taxes, right? Because they look at themselves and they say, if you're lower income, right? I'm lower income, I don't matter. I'm barely making any money. They don't care about me, right? But you got those rich guys with their big houses and their landlords or whatever. They probably backdoor hanging out with these politicians and buying the politicians. What? Let me say it again. 30 grand a year, and I don't even get a fake phone call from the mayor, right? That's how much respect I get. When I go to the city, I've gone to City Hall, police. I've gone to the county clerk. Who else I went to? I went to attorney, marshal. I went to the marshal in terms of the guy who does like evictions and stuff, and also the fire marshal. Everybody, same response. They shrug their shoulders. Well, it sucks, I don't know what to tell you, right? That's what everybody tells me. Shrugging their shoulders. Nobody knows what to do. They just like the system sucks. Mind you, these people are part of the problem, right? They work for the agencies that are perpetuating this situation. So if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. You work for these agencies. So you mean tell me you work there and you're not making a fuss with your boss or whoever it is and saying this is not right, we gotta stop doing this. We gotta start treating owners with respect as well as the tenants. We can't just be focused on tenant, because by doing so, we're doing a divide and conquer. We're creating animosity between owners and the renters. The renters are getting a perception of, landlords are just also landlords and greedy, whatever, they living on easy street, right? And then the landlords are terrified because they know they don't have any support. They know that the city will let them drown, let them lose their homes, let the big banks come in and take the homes and push the rents up further and make things even worse. Like that's where things are headed, right? But here's another thing. This is specifically what motivated me to talk about this. So I'm in a situation where I have a guy that has months of trash on his deck. I've been pleading with this guy. I've been trying everything to get him to just stop accumulating trash on the property. Again, the entire city shrugs their shoulders. No one will do anything. You have these agencies that are providing their support to this guy, right? They're feeding him, they're providing him the housing in terms of financially, but then they're taking no responsibility for his behavior. So he's able to do whatever he wants to do. He's accountable to no one. He doesn't have to listen to anything I say. He doesn't have to listen to anything that the city says, right? All he has to do is stay in his apartment and keep his door shut. Anybody come here and have something to say to him, as long as his door is shut, it's irrelevant. No one's gonna fine him. No one's gonna take any action. No one's gonna even try to pressure him. Like they won't even come and say, "Listen, guy, this has to stop." Right? There's no law against that. That you could say it's not enforceable, right? But you gotta try, right? If you're gonna be taking care of someone, take some responsibility. Don't have this hands-off approach. We're gonna feed this guy, but then if he act up and he's doing craziness to other neighbors and other people in the building and the landlord, well, no, that's not how it works, man. If you don't want to take responsibility, then keep out. Don't fund these people, right? If you're gonna provide, comfort, right? You take responsibility. It's just like, for example, I hate to use this analogy, but if there's a fugitive, right, and then you put them in your house, you know what I'm saying? The police find out, you're gonna be held accountable, right? You can't have some fugitive in your house and then just be like, oh well, no, man. You gotta take responsibility. You have this person in your house? Nah, man. So you funding this person, you need to take some responsibility. They're acting up. You need to at least try to intervene. But here's the thing, what I specifically wanted to talk about. So I got a frustrated tenant that's frustrated. Like they've been dealing with this for like 2 years now, and they're asking me to do something, and I'm forced to reveal how powerless I am. I'm letting him know, like, listen, this guy doesn't have to listen to me. He doesn't have to follow anything I say. I gave him examples. Look at, previous time we had to call the police multiple times just to fix something in their apartment. The police had to be called to fix something in their apartment. We had the repairman outside the door pleading with them while they were complaining about the thing that needed fixing. And the person has to say to them, I'd like to fix it for you, but you got to let me in. So the point is, I got absolutely no power whatsoever. The city has completely taken away my power. And because the tenant is pushing me, like, hey, do something about this guy, I'm forced to reveal how powerless I am. So think about that. I'm presenting to my tenant the fact that tenants have all the power and I have no power. So I'm communicating to my tenant, my good tenant, that he doesn't have to listen to me either. If this crazy guy can do all this and get away with it, what can my other tenant do? Fortunately, he's a good guy, but I mean, he is human. And what if he decides to take advantage? Like, because he knows now, wait, this guy can't do nothing. Look at all the stuff that this guy's doing and getting away with it. So there's a lot of smaller things that he could do. And, you know what I mean? Like, think about sending that message that you are not accountable to anyone. That the landlord, you can just ignore them. Because, I mean, this guy's been here, he hasn't paid rent in 2 years. If he can be here and not pay rent, what could I imagine to tell this other person to do? So you don't give the landlord any power, and you allow this to continue. So now the message gets sent that landlords don't have any power. So people bad actors gonna go and say, listen, man, oh, your landlord said that, oh, don't he can't do nothing. If he tell you anything, just keep your door shut. So then you're gonna have more bad tenants doing more bad things, scaring away more landlords. I got a couple of guys down the block that used to be landlords that don't rent anymore because they're afraid of this kind of stuff. One guy said he had a good tenant and he actually ended their lease. He wasn't even having problems yet. He just didn't want any part of this business because of how, insane things have gotten. You scare off the small landlords. Like, so that's an apartment. That's at least a couple apartments that are not available because of Democrat policies. Less apartments, supply and demand, that pushes the rents up. You keep abandoning the landlords in favor of the tenants. Then you have less landlords, less units, right? Every time you do this, like somebody have a multifamily home, You know, like this is an older guy. Imagine me as an older guy with this home. This is a four family, right? So imagine in the future where I refinance and the mortgage is not that high, and I see things going crazy, and I'm just like, I don't want to do this anymore, and I basically end all my leases, and I take over this whole house. So now you have four units that are being used by one person. You have me living in a four family home by myself because I'm terrified to rent out my apartments because I know if I get a bad tenant, the city's gonna abandon me. How many, and this is something young Turks won't talk about. They'll talk about losing inventory to Airbnb, right, because it serves their anti capitalist agenda or rhetoric, but they don't want to talk about how much inventory is being lost by landlords who are walking away from this very dangerous and risky business as a result of lack of support from the government. They protect the tenants, not the landlords. Unless you're in Florida, then it's the opposite. Additionally, for those who decide to stay in the business, they're incentivized to increase the rents as high as possible because the riskier a business is, the more compensation required. When marijuana was illegal, drug dealers, if I'm not mistaken, made more money. It's for the risk of selling drugs with the risk of prison time or whatever, right? You're not gonna do that. You're not gonna take on those kind of risks without good compensation. Like imagine robbing a bank for with the expectation of getting like a few $100s. I mean, the risk in terms of what you could get in terms of prison sentence as a result, just for a few $100s, it's not worth it, right? To get a bank robber to risk that, he needs to have a chance of like walking away with millions or at least hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? If you're gonna abandon landlords and then you're gonna want them to stay in the business, those that stay are going to try to get the rents as high as possible because what if you have to deal with a tenant that doesn't pay rent for 6 months, a year, 2 years, and you can't pay your mortgage? If you increase the rents as high as possible, then you can save more money so that you can weather these types of situations. You can use that money to pay for attorney and also to be able to pay your mortgage without getting rent coming in. Also, by you increasing the rents, you're changing the clientele of who can rent to you. So you're avoiding things like government programs and stuff like that, the types of things that make you even more vulnerable to devastating situations where you have a bad actor and the government just shrugs their shoulders. Oh, there's rats in your place because the guy's trashed for months. Well, I don't know, right? Um, so you have the media. No part of the media wants to tell the full story. Every part of the media is only telling what side is convenient to their narrative. And then I also discovered recently you have people in the government who are connected to this that aren't even aware of how bad it is. You have a rental assistance program where the people in that program, I spoke to even a supervisor, and they're telling me incorrect information. So in their minds, their program is not as bad as it actually is in practice, right? Because they're saying, oh, you don't have to do such and such because of blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, that's not true. I'm in court talking to the judge, talking to, from a legal standpoint, and what you're saying is incorrect, right? Your program is enabling some very, very bad things to be happening, right? And the solution that you're saying is actually not accurate because of X, Y, and Z. Because, for example, they will tell you that they won't block an eviction for someone who isn't paying rent. But the way the courts function, as long as there's a pending application for rental assistance, they will freeze everything in the courts. So the person has a pending application and they're not paying rent. So every time you go to court, they just adjourn it, nothing happens. But then you have people in the rental assistance program that are saying, no, you can evict them because they're not paying. No, that's the courts are not allowing me to. Then you go down to the city clerk and they're telling me I don't have access to this guy's unit. So when we needed to get the plumbing fixed, I got to call the police for that. If there's an emergency, I can't even get into. That's craziness. I can't get into a unit in my own house. I go down to the city clerk and she's like, oh, just change the locks. They don't even realize how bad things are. These are city workers who are part of the system and don't have an accurate perception of how bad things are. That is why things are this bad. You have the public who don't know the full story. They're watching bad faith actors and right-wing media, right? Who are just spinning stuff on behalf of GOP. Then they're watching, liberal or left-wing media that's just saying the Democrats need to do more and basically going after the right, whatever conservatives are saying, and blah, 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 anti-capitalist, evil landlord. Then you got people who are in these programs, these very, very devastating programs, that don't even know how bad it is. So just a complete dysfunctional, just a complete, what's that guy, that crazy guy, fallen state. It's a complete dysfunction, broken, all around, broken, broken, broken. Public is in the dark. Government officials, not quite in the dark, but not fully aware of the things that they're a part of. And then you have the effects of this. Small landlords taking their apartments off the market, and then you have those that are in there trying to push the rent up. Of course, TYT would focus on just the greedy ones, not realizing that some of them are doing this out of fear. What's the solution in a functional society? Number one, communication. Landlords and tenants need to talk. There needs to be meetings of landlords meeting with tenants. There needs to be a dialogue. Landlords need to understand the tenant's perspective. Tenants need to understand the landlord's perspective. And it needs to be a compromise. Right now, as far as I know, there's no dialogue. It's us versus them. Everybody's in their camps. Nothing's getting done. Dialogue, right? Because the people in the government who don't know how bad their stuff is, like, they need to be involved in this as well. There needs to be a housing dialogue with all the stakeholders on a regular basis, so everyone is fully informed of what's really happening, and together we can address this issue. United we stand, divided we fall. That's all there is to it. This is the Baby Channel. The Baby comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well. Sad state of affairs. Sad state of affairs.